So, Dr. Kim, what even is a spiritual discipline? Will you define it for us?
Yeah, and I think I was kind of looking around in different things. To me, I think the one that always made the most sense to me is anything that helps me grow in my relationship with God. And so that can encompass all kinds of different things, but it helps me grow. It helps me grow closer to Him. It helps me connect to Him. It helps me feel like I'm in His presence. Anything like that, I think, becomes a spiritual discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. What are some normal spiritual disciplines? Like if you were to list out spiritual disciplines?
I think the one that we talk about all the time certainly is prayer and reading the Bible together, YouVersion plans, or worship. I think sometimes we don't think of things like fasting as being a spiritual discipline, but it certainly can be if that's part of your intent in that. We know Jesus fasted. We know, that's certainly something's done in the Bible. We see that a lot. And it's basically, for me, the principle that when I have fasted is, when I'm hungry, I think about God. Just to turn my and that I'm giving up something, even though it's just me, I'm giving up. I think serving is a spiritual discipline and something that we get every time I serve, I would say that most of the time we get more out of it than ourselves than the people we do, because I just love to serve, and even things like learning in a Bible class, things like that. You're learning. All of those are spiritual disciplines that I think help us keep our focus. We live in a world with so many distractions, and most of them have nothing to do with God or Jesus. So the more things of spiritual disciplines we put in our life, the more we can surround ourselves with God's presence, with His Word, with His truth, what He wants for us, His purpose in our life. All those things that really make life in marriage worth living. And so I think those are where spiritual disciplines become very, 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 very meaningful.
Absolutely. I agree. I think your list was really good. I think the only things I might add to that is confession. Not in a priest like confession, but just confessing to God and maybe, like an accountability friend. I think that's a normal spiritual discipline. I also think rest is a spiritual discipline, which is probably like one of the harder things to do, but
Yeah.
I think Sabbath and rest is a spiritual discipline. And then I also think disciple making, which would likely go hand in hand with your local church gathering, but making other disciples of Christ would be a spiritual discipline. And Dr. Kim, I love that you brought up fasting, because I was going to bring that up as well. I think it's one that modern day Christians don't think a lot about, but I think it's really important. There's this really great quote that I got from Dylan's email this last week. Actually, it's a John Mark Comer quote, and it's talking about the importance of fasting. It says it's wise to regularly deny ourselves from getting what we want, whether through a practice as intense as fasting or as minor as picking the longest checkout line. That way,
Mm.
when someone else denies us from getting what we want, we don't respond with anger. We've already acclimated. We don't have to get our way to be happy. And I think fasting is so important, especially in America, because of the nature of our culture and this instant gratification, and we're entitled and we do usually get what we want. And so I think fasting, in addition to
Mm.
reminding you, like what you said, it reminds you to pray for God when you're hungry. I 100% agree with that. I think it also just the regular act of denying ourselves is so
Mm.
good for our spiritual health.